With the Revenant episode, we got a variety of changes, including buffs to multiple exotics. Now, if you're an OG Voidlock main like myself, when I saw that the Skull of Dire Ahamkara got a buff to make it more effective outside of just the super, I had to make a build around it. On top of that, Bad Juju got some changes as well, so let's go over this Ahamkara Warlock build. Let's not waste any time and dive right into it. Like I said, the exotic helmet is the Skull of Dire Ahamkara. With this perk, Actual Grandeur provides additional damage resistance during Nova Bomb Final Blows, and Weapon Final Blows while you have Devour grant super energy. Now, as you can tell, the big change here is getting the bonus super energy while you have Devour and get Weapon Final Blows specifically. What it used to do is you toss out the Nova Bomb and you can get up to 50% of the super back. It was still a good exotic, but the problem was that outside of the super, it didn't really have a place. There was really no neutral game, but now that we have this bonus to the exotic, it feels a lot more effective. And Bad Juju does have a place pairing with this exotic because with its intrinsic String of Curses, kills refill the magazine, increase damage for a short duration, and grants super energy based on the strength of String of Curses, fires full auto. Essentially, as long as you have Devour and you're getting multi-kills with Bad Juju, it's going to automatically reload itself, bonus damage, and give you even more super energy, which means if you toss out the Nova Bomb and proceed to use Bad Juju, you can get the super back very quickly. Now, we also have Hammerforged Rifling with steady rounds, hip fire grip, and short action stock, and then the Catalyst extends the duration of String of Curses. Now, the other buff is the explosion that happens with String of Curses. Before the update, I never used to see, or rarely used to see, the explosion occur, but now, as long as I have String of Curses like ×3 or above, essentially every kill you get can cause a String of Curses, a big AoE explosion, by the way. It actually does a lot of damage, so it's really good for crowd control. Now, going over the subclass, I'm mostly going to focus on Prismatic, but that doesn't mean it's not good on the Void subclass. I do have a Void setup for it, so if you want the dim link, I will provide that in the description. Again, it's good on Void, but there are just so many benefits on Prismatic that we have to take advantage of it. One of the big benefits being Transcendence, obviously. For my super, obviously got to go with Nova Bomb Cataclysm to take advantage of the helmet. For my other abilities, I'm going with Phoenix Dive for the class ability, but you can use one of the rifts if you'd like. For movement, I like Burst Glide, but you can use what you like. For the melee, though, definitely Arcane Needle, so you have 3 melees, and I would recommend pairing that up with Lightning Surge, so you can slide, blink forward, jolt targets, and have really good crowd control here. And then for the grenade, I'm going with the Vortex Grenade. Now, our other aspect is going to be Feed the Void, and this is how we're going to get Devour proc to take advantage of the helmet and the health benefits. But essentially, as long as you get an ability kill, it's going to proc Devour, and if you continue getting kills, it gives you full health and grenade energy, and with Feed the Void specifically, it actually buffs those benefits. For your fragments, the last 4 are important and I'd recommend, but the first one we do have some options. The first one being Fast of Dawn, so you can get Radiant on those powered melee hits, and if you get Final Blows, it makes nearby allies Radiant as well. It's a -10 to strength. You could also use Facet of Grace, which is going to be really good with Bad Juju since it's a kinetic weapon. Defeating targets with the kinetic weapon grants you bonus Transcendence energy, and when you defeat targets with your super, it grants you and nearby allies bonus Transcendence energy. It is a -10 to resilience. The last one I'll mention is Facet of Sacrifice here in the first slot. As long as you have a light buff, your ability Final Blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. It's a +10 to discipline. So with the kinetic weapon, you actually gain both light and darkness transcendence energy. But with our abilities, since they're mostly light abilities, being able to, have a way to get Darkness Transcendence energy without having to main Bad Juju is a decent option as well. But like I said, these last 4 are important. So with Fast of Awakening, defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates an elemental pickup of the matching type, which is a +10 to resilience. Now, in this case, the main thing we want is the Void Breach. And again, when you pick up a Void Breach, it does give you class ability energy, but that is going to lead into the artifact, which we'll talk about right after this. Next is Facet of Dominance, so your Void Grenades will weaken targets. It is a -10 to discipline, so now a Vortex Grenade can add that weaken proc. Next, Facet of Protection. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, the effect is increased. That's a +10 to strength. And then lastly, Facet of Purpose. So when you pick up an Orb of Power, you're going to gain a buff depending on what super you're using, and in this case, we're using Nova Bomb, which means every time we pick up an Orb of Power, we do get the Void Overshield, and note it is a -10 to recovery. For your artifact perks, in the first column, you can choose whatever weapon champion mods that you like. Now, it does kind of stink that a lot of these do focus around stasis, but we do have some decent options with this build. In the second column, Killing Breeze, rapid weapon final blows grant you a bonus to mobility, and if you have any of those Dark Ether, Reaper, or Detrate weapons, it counts as more than 1. Next, Fell the Revenant. Deal increased damage to Scorn. Again, this is a flat bonus across the board, and if you're using any of the Shadestalker armor, you do get an increased bonus to that, but I do like this one overall since a lot of the activities do involve Scorn. Next, Rapid Impacts. Dealing damage with a grenade launcher temporarily increases the reload speed of grenade launchers. I really like this one. In the third column, Total Carnage. After finishing a powerful combatant, you gain temporary damage resistance, and if you have the Shadestalker armor, you actually get some health back, which is nice. Also, Trace Evidence. Now, rapid Precision hits and rapid final blows on targets affected by Jolt or Blind will generate ionic traces. Now, the reason I like this is for the slide melee in particular, not because we're going to be using arc weapons, so keep that in mind. In the fourth column, debilitating wave. Finishers emit a damaging wave that matches the element of your currently equipped super. In this case, it'd be Void, but it does kind of pair up with Total Carnage. Next, concussive reload. Using a grenade launcher to damage a boss, champ, or break a combatant shield will weaken them. Again, this one is very important here. And then in the final column, Supernova. Picking up a Void Breach causes your next source of Void damage to create a large weakening pulse. This one is very key, and that's why we were talking about Facet of Awakening. So we can create the Void Breach with that if we get rapid Void final blows, to have the Void Breach to not only be able to have the class ability back, but also get your next Void proc to also cause a weakening pulse. Basically, as long as you keep creating these Void Breaches, you can have constant weaken on the field outside of just your grenade, which is nice. And then lastly, Served Cold. The main thing here is picking up a Void Breach grants you melee energy. So not only do we get the class ability energy from it, but we also can get our melee back, which again is going to be good for the triple electric melee. For your weapons, outside of Bad Juju in the kinetic slot, for your energy weapons, I would recommend a special Void weapon. And if you can get your hands on the new Dungeon Area Denial frame, this thing is disgusting, especially if you can get Repulsor Brace. Defeating a Void debuff target grants an Overshield. So if you defeat a target that's weakened with this GL, you get a full Void Overshield, which is very nice. It's going to be great for survivability. As you can see, I have destabilizing rounds as well, so I can cause some volatile. I have seen attrition orbs in that last slot, which means you can create a lot of orbs of power on the field, which is very nice too. I know there are a couple of special Void Grenade launchers you can use here. There's like 2 wave frames and just a regular one, but I would recommend the Area Denial. They're just very good right now. And then in the heavy slot, just use your favorite Void Heavy. Again, if you have an Edge Transit, that's a grenade launcher that can apply the weaken buff from the artifact, which is very nice. As you can see, I have enhanced Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch on my Edge Transit. This thing is fantastic. Now, before diving into your armor mods, let's talk about what stats you want to look for. First up, Resilience. We talk about every video. Try to have tier 10 100 Resilience. It's going to give you a 30% damage reduction, which you definitely want to take advantage of. Next, Discipline. Discipline is tied to how fast we can get the grenade back. And even though we do have Devour, I still want that grenade back as quickly as possible to take advantage of it to get more Devour if possible. Next, I would focus on Strength. Again, Strength is tied to your melee ability, and even though we have 3 of them and we can still get the ability back pretty quickly, I still want to be able to use it when I can and spam it to, either crowd control or create ionic traces with Fast of Awakening or the artifact. On the helmet, I'm using Kinetic and Harmonic Siphon, so those Rapid Kinetic and Void Weapon Final Blows will create Orbs of Power for me, and then I'm just using Heavy Ammo Finder as my last one. On the gauntlets, I'm using Double Momentum Transfer, so when I cause damage with my grenade, it cools down my melee, and then I'm also using Heavy Handed, so my powered melee final blows create Orbs of Power. You can switch this one out for firepower as well, so if you get powered grenade final blows, it will create Orbs of Power. On the chest piece, I'm using Harmonic Reserves, which translates to Void Reserve. So instead of costing 2, it only costs 1. So I can have more ammo for my Void Special and Heavy Weapon, which is going to be good. And then I'd recommend just putting on Resistance mods that match up with whatever activity you're doing. For my boots, I do have on Recuperation, so I get health each time I pick up an Orb of Power. Now, I would only recommend this for tougher activities just because it's a good survivability mechanic. But if you don't want to use this, you can also put on Invigoration, so you get more melee energy when you pick up Orbs of Power. And then I also have on Kinetic Weapon Surge and Void Weapon Surge, so I get bonus damage to my kinetic and void weapons for a short amount of time while I have an armor charge, and now my armor charges will now decay over time. Essentially, when you collect an Orb of Power, you will gain an armor charge. With this build in particular, you can have 3 armor charges, and with any of these blue mods, it puts a 10-second timer on that armor charge, which means we can have 30 seconds of bonus weapon damage for both our kinetic and void weapons. And lastly on the class item, I like Reaper, so shortly after using my class ability, your next weapon final blow will spawn an Orb of Power. Next, Time Dilation. Your decaying armor charge has a longer duration, so that 10 seconds that I mentioned actually gets bumped up to 15 seconds. So at 3 armor charges, we have 45 seconds of that bonus weapon damage. And then lastly, Outreach, so it reduces my melee cooldown when I use my class ability. Now, as you can tell from the footage, I'm actually using this in Expert Onslaught, and it's going pretty well. I mean, with Devour, we have great survivability. We have the Void Overshield. With Bad Juju, we can get the super back faster, get our Transcendence bar, also cause the explosions more frequently now, having the Area Denial grenade launcher for crowd control, and then Edge Transit for DPS, having weaken procs across the board, getting our... Yeah, it's crazy how fast you can get our abilities with Devour, and not only that, but also with the stuff on the artifact as well. We have our abilities up pretty much all the time. And then with the Nova Bomb, if you somehow whiff it and you only get like a quarter of the super back, using Bad Juju and collecting Orbs of Power with your teammates is going to make this very easy. I would recommend using this build in pretty much any difficulty that's going to be under Expert Onslaught, which is like 90% of the content. This is still going to be effective in dungeons. It's going to be effective in raids. It's going to be totally fine. It might not be the most effective considering, you know, certain encounters and certain builds and whatnot, but it's still going to perform really well. I just wouldn't recommend trying to take this into GMs. A lot of this build does require you to be kind of up close and personal for most of it, being able to take advantage of Devour and also some of the close quarter stuff with the melee and whatnot. So I wouldn't recommend it for GMs in particular. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Ahamkara Warlock build. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I think the interaction between Skull of Dire Ahamkara and having the bad Juju buff just make this absolutely disgusting. And if you want to copy this build, I'm actually going to put the dim links in the description like I mentioned. So if you want to copy everything that I'm using, down to the subclass, the armor mods, the weapons, even the drip if you'd like, that's going to include the ornaments and the shaders as well. Copy it and go test out for yourself. If there's something you like using with this build after testing, definitely let me know in the comments. There are definitely a couple things you can switch out here to make the build very effective across the board, pretty much regardless of what you're using. In any event, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on any other Destiny builds here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream here on YouTube and also over on Twitch. That link will be in the description. We will be doing Vesper's post dungeon help. So if you want help with the dungeon, you know, come by stream, hop in the chat, say something. If we're running it, we can definitely help you out. And if you want to be proactive, join my Discord. We're going to have plenty of people looking to run the dungeon. So if you would like help, whether it's from me or somebody in my community, definitely hop in. And lastly, if you want to help support the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it is technically cheaper. In any event, you do get access to the exclusive emotes, the monthly badges, and other cool stuff here on the channel. Mainly being, you can get access to all of my long form videos early. So if you want to see a new Destiny build early, you can get access to it right away when I post it. So if you want more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and that'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.